If you are trying to achieve an effective and accurate shot, there are 4 requirements that must be met before you pull the trigger. Here at Rajco, we call them the 4 fundamentals. Treat this like your musical scales, or a checklist that builds consistency and almost guarantees shot placement. In this video, I'm going to break down each one so that you can take your training to the next level. Like most things in life, the 4 fundamentals come with a ton of nuance, and they won't always be applied in the exact same way. But they do exist to give you a pattern of consistency that you can tap into when you need it most. With platforms like revolvers, rifles, and shotguns, the 4 fundamentals will be applied a little bit differently to each one. Today I'm going to be using a Glock 45 that's chambered in 9mm, and these fundamentals will directly apply to other modern striker-fired handguns as well. Let's roll. Starting with fundamental number 1, stance. Now I know there's a ton of people out there that don't actually teach stance, and that's because they don't think it's a requirement for an effective and accurate shot. But in regards to that consistent pattern that we're trying to create to achieve high-level results, we must incorporate a stance to build off of. And that's going to look just like this. Feet shoulder width apart, knees slightly bent, back nice and straight, and shoulders square with the target. The goal is to build a position where if I was pushed from any direction, I'd be able to maintain my balance without having to move one of my feet out of place. So if you feel like you're going to topple over, adjust until you feel grounded and centered. Fundamental number 2, grip. Start with your dominant hand. Take up as much grip as possible. You'll know that your dominant hand is where it should be when your middle finger is tight underneath the trigger guard and the webbing of your thumb and first finger are riding high on the tang or the beaver tail of the firearm. You'll notice that my trigger finger is riding straight on the frame and it's not resting on the trigger at this time. As I flip the firearm over, you may notice that my thumb is sticking straight up, and you'll see why momentarily. Now the support hand. Line up the 3 forward-facing knuckles of your dominant hand with the 3 pockets at the base of your support hand fingers. Wrap your support hand around until both thumbs meet. From here, it's one thumb on top of the other. As a side note, your thumbs should be connected from top to bottom. Now that both hands are in the correct positions, we're going to clamp both hands down on the firearm evenly to create a nice, tight, sealed grip. Fundamental number 3, sight picture. Red dots are their own topic, and I will be making a video for that in the future. As for aiming your firearm out of the box with iron sights, your goal is basically just to line up the front and rear sights so that they're nice and flush with each other. It should look just like this. Line up the front sight post between the rear sight notch with equal space on both sides. We also want to make sure that the top of the front and rear sights form a flat, level line. To quickly align your iron sights, there's a phrase to remember, and it's called dropping the ball in the bucket. We just have to imagine that our front sight post is sort of like a ball and our rear sight notch is kind of like a bucket. So when I push out for sight picture, I'll follow that front sight post until it falls into the rear sight notch. Fundamental number 4, trigger pull. This is the step that most people overlook, and it could be the difference between hitting your target and missing it. There are 2 things we want to incorporate when we go to pull the trigger. The first thing that we want to do is achieve a position on something that's called the wall, which is the point of most resistance after the initial slack of the trigger has been taken up. Yes, you can just pull straight through, but the wall is intentional. By staging here, we reduce movement and improve accuracy. So first we pull to the wall, then we break the trigger. And the second thing that we want to do when we pull the trigger is use the pad of our finger to pull that trigger back. We don't want to use the knuckle and we don't want to use the tip. We want to use the pad. When we hook in on the trigger with our finger, we're actually introducing more wrist motion into the shot, which can pull on the firearm after we break the wall. And when we use the tip of our finger to pull the trigger, we can also push the firearm out of place. By using the pad of our finger, we can pull straight back, keeping our sight picture and barrel aligned with the target. Now that you guys know what the 4 fundamentals are, I think it's time that we put it all together. All right, so let's break it down in live time. We're going to apply our stance. That's feet shoulder length apart, knees slightly bent, back nice and straight, and shoulders square with the target. I'm going to go ahead and apply my dominant grip now. That's riding up as high as I can on the firearm itself. Middle finger underneath the trigger guard, webbing of thumb and first finger riding high up into the tang, beaver tail, or the back of the firearm there. My trigger finger is resting on the frame and it's not on the trigger at this time. My thumb's sticking straight up, waiting for that support hand to come into play. Now for support hand, I'm gonna go ahead and use the pockets where my fingers meet my palm. I'm gonna line them up with the 3 forward-facing knuckles on my dominant hand. That's nice and seated. I'm gonna go ahead and wrap around so that one thumb can go on top of the other. And now I just squeeze nice and tight. Now it's time for sight picture. I'm gonna go ahead and push out. As I push out, I'm dropping the ball into the bucket, front sight into the rear sight. Both the front and rear sights are nice and flush up top. Now I'm ready for trigger pull. I'm gonna go ahead and take up that initial slack and get my finger onto the wall of the trigger. And now I have everything applied: stance, grip, sight picture, and trigger pull of the wall. Let's send a few rounds downrange. All right, that's 5 rounds. Let's go take a look. All right, so 5 rounds. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This kind of a grouping right here at 7 yards is the 4 fundamentals at play. Now let's go back it up for some steel. All right, so I have my stance, grip, sight picture, and trigger pull from the wall. And once again, that's stance, grip, sight picture, and trigger pull from the wall. And that's the 4 fundamentals: stance, grip, sight picture, and trigger pull. Mastering these is going to give you a solid foundation for accuracy. Remember, these are skills that you build through consistent training, and we're going to be diving deeper into different platforms and tools to help you create a consistent pattern. If you found any of this helpful, go ahead and like, subscribe, and leave any questions in the comment section below. I'll be sure to take a look at them. Until next time, stay safe, stay sharp, yeah Raj.